Let me bring in Michael Shoebridge from Strategic Analysis Australia, live from Bow Desert in Queensland. Thanks for joining us again, Michael. I have to ask you the big question about the Middle East at this moment, and that is, what happens next?
Well, Chris, I think step one is to recognise it's a war, and it's an existential war for Israel. They need to re-establish the physical security for their 9.4 million people. And to do that, they will reset the military balance, which is what they've been doing with the killing of the Hezbollah leadership and the dismantling of their command structure, the destruction of about half of their missile and rocket inventories, and now these ground attacks into southern Israel to kill Hezbollah fighters, destroy weapons and destroy tunnels and bases, because Hezbollah was planning an attack like the Hamas October attack of last year from southern Lebanon. And with Iran, you're right, Iran is the orchestrator of these terrorist proxies and supplies them with their rockets and missiles and weapons. Israel is also demonstrating that all the ballistic missiles and rockets Iran have are irrelevant because they can be defeated by the Israeli defense system. But the contrast is Israel can fire weapons into Tehran at will and hit targets precisely. And that's what we'll see next.
Yeah, we will see some sort of targeted response. Now, the way you set out the strategic challenge there for Israel is so clear, and it's so obvious they've been forced into this by the terrorist attacks and by the missile attacks and the attacks from Iran. Yet why do we see so little support from Western political leaders about this strategy? We've got to this situation where it's clear that Israel has to get rid of these missile stockpiles directed at it, has to defeat these terrorist enemies, yet we get ambivalence from the US and even worse from the UK and the UN and others.
Well, I think in the case of our government, the problem is they haven't had an ethical or national interest foundation for what they've been saying and doing. They've seen this as some kind of domestic management issue where they don't want to alienate a bunch of voters in particular electorates. And so they've done, it's like that Joh Bjelke-Petersen saying, I'm up here in Queensland, he famously said, you can't sit on the fence and keep your ear to the ground without terrible things happening. That's what's happened to the Albanese government over this war in the Middle East. There's a democracy called Israel fighting an existential war against a Shia regime in Iran that has built and backed Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis. And you're right. There's a clear side Australia should be on in this war, and that's Israel.